Welcome to Take Two, a discussion of the times and current events. I'm joined as always by Adam Matlack and Mike Pomerantz. Today our topic is, does being invisible help or hurt Joe Biden?
I mean, I think it is plain as day that it hurts him. He should be modeling a kind of uh, not just authority, not just competence, but also filling in the cracks. There's a way to say that people are hurting and they're hurting because of a delay in testing, or they're hurting because of a pandemic response team that was disbanded 2 years ago. And to have those people with him in front of the camera to make that case, um, he's allowed for there to be a no power vacuum. And as Trump is getting more comfortable on this footing, people are going to be like, this is fine. No matter, it's amazing. You wonder how concentration camps happen because you wonder how slavery happened because people say this is fine. And right now they're going to say this is fine. And there's a lot about this that could be worse. But my God, this is so fucking far from fine. And Biden needs to be out there making a detailed case about why that is so. And he's giving up an opportunity. And I think he's so afraid of the both sidesism and we're at war and he's just trying to politicize everything. And my God, this is not the time for leaders who are going to be afraid. This is a time for leaders who are going to be resolute. And I'm not saying you've got to attack Trump for his hair or his weight or his, you don't even have to attack him for his general, boorishness. But when there's a clear pattern of things that either are not true, that are being repeated, or a well understood cause and effect relationship between the delay in taking this seriously and the seriousness of the response that we have now, and what was done with the time we bought by keeping people from China out of the country. Nothing was done. And that needs to be pointed out. Not that this is necessarily going to happen again, not that it's not going to resolve, but he's just letting Trump control the narrative, and he doesn't have to. There's a way to do this where you model authority, you model competence, you model calm, and keep your face on the television. Right now, everybody's like, oh, Trump's got this. This is fine. So, as a guy who, from the political perspective, very much wants Biden to win, I'm a little disappointed at the moment.
So you make a very important assumption through all that, in my opinion. The important assumption to say that Invisible Joe is needs to be out forefront, needs to be grabbing headlines and talking about this is the assumption is that he's a good candidate, and he's not.
The assumption is that he is the candidate.
That's fine that he's the candidate. I agree that that's an absolute assumption and a logical one. But the problem here is that this guy is not any good. This guy's a bad communicator. He's a bad leader. He jumps around, at least from a modern perspective. I don't know him personally, but from what he's selling, from where he's able to lay out modern leadership. Modern leadership is so broken in many ways, and it's literally just like, look, put out bold goals. We're going to get there. I'm not going to tell you how we're going to get there, but we're going to do it. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about sitting there saying, here we go. This is what needs to be done. This is a lie, and this is wrong, and this is how it should be done. He has, and all these modern leaders, they have no idea how to do any of that. They're not doers. They're talkers, right? That's what politicians are. They don't get stuff done. They talk about getting stuff done. They don't talk about how to get it done. They talk about that it needs to get done. And it's actually the majority of Americans from banter perspective are the same way. Look, it should be like this. I have no idea how it needs to be like that, but it needs to be like that. And that's how it should be. And that's nice and all. But in this case, I think I'm taking a different view here. I think the government is taking a crap ton of blame. And I think a lot of people are pushing their narrative. Nobody's moving aisles here. I think if you're a Dem, you're pissed off at the government's response. If you're a Republican, I think you're probably okay with the socialist response that Trump's having and all this stuff, and everything's flipped on its head. And I mean, if they send out $2,400 to married couples and $500 per kid, I think it's a huge win for Trump, mainly because that's one of the things people remember is just like, oh, I got all this money and all this stuff, and Trump did it, and Trump's doing these things, and Trump took care of me or tried to or whatever. And so you go down this line, is it good for him to be invisible? In my opinion, it is, mainly because I have absolutely no faith in his ability to come across as presidential or as competent in any way. And so thus staying as if I haven't been in politics for 50 years and this is the only thing I know and I'm not any good at it. Instead, he just disappears into the bush and let Trump take the blame and maybe some success, but primarily be like, oh, no, it's not Biden. It's Trump's fault. Anything that goes wrong is Trump's fault.
I mean, there's something perhaps to be said for letting Trump fall on his face and not putting yourself in a position to commit an unforced error. And I agree with your assessment. Joe is the friggin' king of unforced errors going on 30 plus years. But if he can't rise to the moment, I don't want him to bother campaigning. If you're going to sit back and concede this moment for the sake of I don't know what, then don't run, don't bother. So while you are correct from my personal opinion, subjective though it may be, that this guy, he's got a good chance of coming out and being like, he doesn't have any idea what to say. And if he says something, he's going to get himself in trouble and he'll get fact checked on it. And I realize that he is a gas machine. But man, if that doesn't mean don't try. If he's just going to not try, I say don't run.
Well, it's tough. I mean, I think that's a really noble position to take. Sit there and be like, oh, listen, I want somebody who's actually capable of doing these things. But most people are sitting there making that assessment where they're like, oh, what's the lesser of two evils, right? Who's going to put me in a better position personally, and who's going to reinforce the things that I care about more? And so from my perspective, you're sitting there saying, Biden needs to take charge. I just don't think he's capable of it. I don't think it's who he is. And moreover, I think his advisors, and it was really interesting last week. I mean, he fired his campaign manager, hired a new one, and all of the media talked about how, Sleepy Joe, well, of course they didn't say that, but Joe hired a new, and if I swear to you, if Trump did that, it would all be the reverse. It would be about how he fired his current one, not how he hired a new one. And I think that's the advantage that Joe has in any of his. And I'm being serious here. Listen, look, like it or not, the pundits are for Joe. If you don't think that the majority of pundits are leaning for Joe, I think that his new staff knows that, and they can take advantage of where if they let the media poke at and pry at and continue to kind of deflate and attack Trump, he doesn't have to. And in many ways, that's effective. And so I think that's where we are.
Well, I do just want to answer briefly on the personnel issue. If you have a dead end job and you may not even be able to keep that job, and you're driving whatever you can afford, and if it gets you to the job, God bless you, that's great. Isuzu, Kia, whatever you can afford, it gets you there, that's fine. When that job changes or takes off and now you're rocking and rolling, okay, you move up, you get better. And it's one thing if your campaign is in a tailspin. It's like, we talk about pro sports, okay? You can fire the manager if your season's in a tailspin. When Joe fired his campaign manager, was his season in a tailspin? No, everything was going great. He was upgrading from the Isuzu to the Mercedes, and when I say Mercedes, I mean the person Clyburn wanted him to hire. So,
I agree. The issue isn't about what actually happens. It's about the narrative that's pitched as what happens. All I'm saying is that that's an advantage for Biden, and I think his group, his people, his advisors know that they have that advantage. And so it's better to hide a weak candidate and to let Trump take the blame than
how
it is.
was the reporting on replacing the campaign manager? How was that
It shows everything. It's just minute. It's literally, I get it. It's small. I understand. I'm not saying that's what's going to position him. I'm saying that is a sleight of hand to let us know that the majority of reporting is going to favor Biden.
I mean, we get this all the time where it's like, oh, if Obama did this, or oh, if Trump did this. I mean, I am so friggin' sick of it. Like, don't tell me how bad it would be if Obama tried to do something. Okay, that's a branch of history that has never occurred, at least not in this dimension. So you say, well, if Trump was on a roll and changed or fired his campaign manager, the press would be killing him. Trump in disarray. Trump in disarray. Maybe you're right, but it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Nobody said that. So why is it that when Joe's coverage of changing his campaign manager is accurately reported, like he's doing well, and now he's going from the Isuzu to the Mercedes? Why is it that people who support Trump have to whine and say, "Oh, Joe gets such great coverage"? The coverage was accurate.
The problem I have with your statement is that I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not a Trump supporter, first of all. The second part is that I'm just merely talking about, and maybe it's a weak point, and I'll concede that maybe that particular one's not.
I think there are better examples.
But at the heart of it, I think the argument's still true. Biden has more friends in the media than Trump does, and I think that's a really easy statement to believe.
It's the God's honest truth, and it's probably true to a great extent because Trump came out, I think, on day one saying, "You guys are the enemy," probably even before he got elected. "You guys are the enemy of the people." So if he's sad about the coverage, maybe he should have thought of that before he tried to criminalize them and kick them out of the White House.
But I don't disagree
with that NBC reporter today was incredible, where he's like, "You're a bad reporter. That's a nasty question." I mean, the question was, what do you tell people who are stuck in their homes and afraid? And he said, "I tell them that you're a bad reporter."
Well, hang on. This is
But he
reinforcing my point. You're reinforcing my point, though. This conversation isn't about how Sleepy Joe's terrible at his future job. This is about how Trump's an a-hole, right? So the narrative is that okay, if Biden was right, it's all about what could be. It's not about what is. That's part of the conversation, right? And so it's literally about these conversations continue to attack Trump, and some of the voters care, and some of them don't. But ultimately, when Biden comes up and the ticket is there, the less they know about Biden, in my opinion, the better. And
that's why, I know we're getting a little off topic, but that's why the crisis helps him. Nobody is going to care about the Iraq war vote in November.
Agreed.
Nobody cares about it now, and nobody will care about it in November. And if he picks Harris as his VP, then he'll be like, "Look, she handed me my butt in the first debate, and now I'm getting smarter and I'm learning to do better." I mean, he's got to have the best of the best around him, or at least they have to look like that, because he's empty and he's old and he's finished, and God help us, he's going to be the nominee.
We could end on that one because
All right, that's all the time we have today. Thank you both. If you enjoyed our video, please be sure to like and subscribe below and join us for the next edition of Take Two.